Joe Biden did not intend to deliver this speech. Well, not with these circumstances, not this year. But this president, whose life has been ravaged by tragedy and misfortune in both his personal and professional spheres, is one person who knows how swiftly things can turn around. Speaking to a crowded Chicago arena on the opening night of the Democratic National Convention, Mr. Biden delivered a passionate defense of his presidency, touching on many of the issues he raised during his campaigns in 2020 and this year. A few weeks after a disastrous debate performance, he withdrew his bid for re-election in mid-July. Like many of you, I devoted my heart and soul to this nation, he concluded, towards the close of a nearly hour-long presentation punctuated by boisterous yells of, "Thank you, Joe." After being introduced by his wife Jill and daughter Ashley, Mr. Biden entered the stage. Jill informed the crowd that she saw him dig deep into his soul as he made the decision to withdraw from the presidential election. He gave Ashley a hug and then dabbed at his eyes with a tissue. With a heartfelt gesture, the president straightened up a bit at the podium and grinned broadly while the audience applauded. While he was clearly considering his position in history, he also took time throughout his speech to extol his vice president, the person he believes will be his successor in the White House. Upon becoming our nominee, he added, "The best decision I've ever made in my career was choosing Kamala as our nominee. She possesses great integrity, experience, and toughness." Mr. Biden did not specifically mention transferring the baton to a new generation in his speech from the Oval Office 4 weeks ago, but the message was nonetheless very apparent. Following the president's speech, Ms. Harris and her spouse, Doug Emhoff, emerged to give Mr. Biden and his spouse, Jill, an embrace. After giving Mr. Biden a hug, the vice president mouthed the words, "I love you." Many of the earlier speakers of the evening focused their tributes on Ms. Harris, even as Mr. Biden devoted a large portion of his speech to her toward the end, a tacit admission that her performance against Donald Trump in November's election could determine how history, and his party, remembers him. Ms. Harris herself made an unexpected but prearranged appearance, entering the stage to riotous cheers. She praised Joe, saying, "Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, your lifetime of service to our country, and everything you continue to do. You have our eternal gratitude." Subsequently, one of Mr. Biden's closest allies, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, had a turn praising the president. He declared, "I've never known a more compassionate man than Joe Biden. I've never met a man who has done so much for so many other people's futures by using his own loss and faith." In her own tribute, Hillary Clinton said that Joe Biden had brought dignity, decency, and competence back to the White House when she took the stage earlier in the evening. Despite not breaking the highest, hardest glass ceiling by becoming the first female president, the 2016 Democratic contender acknowledged that Kamala Harris taking the oath of office is on the other side of that glass ceiling, as she accepted an extended standing ovation. The enthusiastic response Mr. Biden got from the crowded Democratic convention hall was just as intense. Here in Chicago, the Democrats have been celebrating all day. However, the president's applause may be interpreted as a celebration of his remarkable political career, which began in 1972 when he was first elected to Congress at the age of 29, as much as a show of appreciation for his reluctant decision to leave down. That will not be Mr. Biden's opportunity. Rather, he was left to define and defend his legacy as a one-term president in a speech that will be his last address to a sizable American television audience, unless there is a major national event in the following 5 months. He paraphrased a verse from the song American Anthem toward the conclusion of his address. "When my days are over, let me know in my heart that, America, I gave my best to you," he uttered. Another burst of applause broke out from the crowd. Under some not-so-subtle persuasion from Mr. Obama, Mr. Biden turned down Mrs. Clinton's candidacy for president 8 years ago. He had earned the nomination 4 years prior, but the COVID pandemic had prevented him from enjoying the plaudits of a filled Democratic convention hall and the post-speech balloon drop celebration. Thus, this was the closest Mr. Biden would get to a moment in the spotlight during the Democratic convention. The president exited the venue after his speech, which ended around midnight on the U.S. East Coast, and boarded Air Force One to take a holiday flight to California. His days at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago were measured in hours rather than days, and his final months as president will be counted in months, not years, despite what he wanted only a few months ago.